Hi everyone. Um, I just realized I have 14 minutes because my phone is full of, I guess, video clips and things that I need to delete. So instead of going back and deleting them, because it's period day one, night one rather, night one, not day one. Day one will be tomorrow. And that usually has me dealing with brain fog. And this is a sign, this must be a sign from the universe that I should keep this short and sweet. Oh, give me a second. Oh. Okay, that's point one. I will keep pausing this to gather my thoughts because I have serious brain fog sometimes when I'm on my period. So, ladies, I have a message of encouragement for you, and it's going to be a very interesting summary of uh, just one part of my life. So, let's go. When I When I was about 11, 12, 11, my grandfather had type 2 diabetes. So, I mean, he had had it for a long time, but he developed this wound. He had this wound on his foot, and it eventually got infected. And in spite of the hydrogen peroxide cleaning and wrapping it in with betadine solution and a gauze, it didn't heal, as tends to be the case with type 2 diabetes. The wounds don't heal. Slow wound healing is a characteristic of type 2 diabetes. And I remember that wound turning black. And I used to scrub it with hydrogen peroxide with, it's like tweezers and cotton wool, and just try to, he used to tell me, scrub it hard and then address it. I'd dip a gauze in betadine solution, the red stuff that smells really bad, and then put it there because cotton is has lint. So I put it there, and then I'd wrap the whole thing all around his foot, um, and leave some room on the heel, and then up around his leg just a bit, just above the ankle sometimes, and then clip it with something to hold it in place. I remember when we ran out of electricity for a while, and um, I guess he was going through a hard time financially, and he was basically the breadwinner of our home. I grew up with my grandparents and my mom and her siblings, and in the same house. And so, at some point when we didn't have electricity, um, we had my grandpa needing insulin for his type 2 diabetes. He used to use his empty Vaseline jars uh, and stuff them with cotton, and then pour in methylated spirit. You know how it feels cool against your skin? Because his insulin is supposed to stay in the fridge. He'd put his insulin vial in there and uh, keep that closed and store it in a cool, dry place. And there were just a bunch of other things that happened. I remember coming home and seeing an eviction notice on our door and panicking. It was in red, and panicking, like really panicking. And I didn't even panic as much when we didn't have electricity for a long time, or when the sink had a problem and the water was leaking and we needed to put a bucket underneath to collect water, dirty kitchen water, and then pour it outside at the drain, because there was a drain outside. But I could just tell things were tough financially, and my mom would go to work and she spent a lot of time sleeping. And I now, in my adulthood, and alongside the assessment of someone else who's lived with her, have started to think that she had depression. um, my mom, I remember, slept a lot when I was a kid. She didn't neglect me per se, like she wouldn't do anything to put me in harm's way, as I recall. But she just really slept a lot. And even I, as a child, felt like my mom sleeps a lot. And I felt like I couldn't really tell anyone about it for some reason. Because kids have this way of filling the gaps for themselves. And then I was accused of daydreaming a lot as a kid. I just shared on social media, on Instagram, on a comment somewhere when someone did something that got me in my fields. She's a psychologist. I have a lot of respect for her. And, she talks a lot about dysregulation and how childhood trauma causes us to, we keep score, like the example she gives is, when you drop a glass, even as an adult, this panic, this clenching we go through because of how much we were yelled at, for making a mess, or how often we were smacked or spanked for it. And for some of us, it was beating. It wasn't just, a little tap with something. It was actual beating, and the marks were left. And if not at home, I don't remember my mom leaving marks on me when I got spanked. It was in school. Like, it was in school that I remember getting properly beaten with a pipe and having scars on the backs of my legs. That's very emotionally damaging. I used to think, yeah, children should be spanked. I have, I lean in a very different direction now. I totally understand why parents don't and should not spank their children or beat them. Just physical, because it's very confusing to beat a child and then tell them you love them. Then now they grow up thinking, if A plus A, I mean, 1 plus 1 is equals to 2, then growing up, if a man tells them, I hit you because I love you, you see how it's easy for the brain to have been wired to think love can be violent. And many people will think that that's a stretch, but no, there's a reason why very many of us African women or women from the global south normalize getting hit. Or why we think I'd rather get hit than he cheats on me. Because that whole, I don't want him to cheat on me, that's worse, is pick me behavior. I'm supposed to be the prize. Because again, we are groomed to think of marriage as the ultimate, but I digress. Then my grandpa used to say to me that I was going to be a doctor a lot. He said it a lot. And he died when I was 17, 7 days before his birthday. He died on the 23rd of June, 2005. And even when I talk about this, I get very, very agitated. Like, I literally feel my body grieving his loss because I wasn't informed immediately. And so a day before his birthday is on the 1st of July, I had gotten him a card. Or maybe it was days before, but I just didn't know he was gone. I wrote, this is tough. I wrote all my feelings. It was the first time I was telling him, thank you for being my dad. Thank you for the books you bought, for the treats, for always making me feel capable and loved and like I deserved to take up space. And not just deserved to take up space, but that I was incredible and there was nothing that you wouldn't do for me. And I wrote down all my feelings and I poured my heart out into that card. Now, for me to learn accidentally that he'd passed away on a Saturday, and then to now call my family members and their phones are off, and then leave a voice message with my uncle because I figured my mom would be in distress. I just knew as a child that my mom would be in distress because she loved my grandpa. Like, she absolutely loved him. We loved him. We really did. His children, we loved him. And so, I need a minute. So I'm 17 and I bury this man that I absolutely loved. Something in me died that day. And I've said it even to my ex, who reminded me a lot of him in the first phase of our relationship. He came to Germany and something in him just changed, I feel. My ex, that is. And I told him, like, you remind me of my late grandpa. And he did. All the way to the end of the relationship, he mostly did. And yeah, so, and in a good way, like, he was a safe space. I felt like I could be safe with him physically, emotionally, financially. It's just, as I've said, some things just happened. And I said largely in the first phase of our relationship. The second phase was not awesome. When I joined high school, I just didn't feel like I belonged, and I now know I had depression. I had really bad depression because I had suicidal ideation. And then when I was done with high school, and high school for me was so hard that just hearing the name of the place where I went to high school, Limuru, it triggers me very badly. I just think of the cold days and just feeling off. And I looked like I was okay on the outside, but I just wasn't. And I especially wasn't okay after my grandpa passed away. And then I'm called to do a course. I actually didn't get a letter to go to to high school, even though I got a good grade, which was also very disappointing for me. But now let's literally have 3 minutes left. I got called to do something else. I don't remember what, but I revised my options when going to campus. So I took nutrition because I knew my mom could not afford to pay for med school. So I pretended to not want to go to med school. I really wanted to go to med school. I still do think about going to med school, not just because of the dreams of a dead man that I loved, but because I genuinely love working with sick people, but I hate working in hospitals because my grandpa was in hospital for a long time. For about a year, he was admitted in hospital, and it was just tough seeing him there. That's why I hate clinical nutrition. I do not like working in hospital settings, which is why it's been very difficult for me to think of getting into the nursing career, because I can just, the thought of working with sick people at a hospital and not at home is difficult for me. I would rather be a palliative care nurse who is taking care of people at home, those who've been sent home to be comfortable. I would rather do that work. I'd rather do end of life dignified care than just at a hospital facility. And all these things, including how difficult it was for me to realize that nutrition was not going to be practiced the way I wanted, because I thought nutrition was supposed to be where you connected with people and talked to them. And that's why I left clinical nutrition as well. And I went through a depressive phase in campus where I couldn't go to class and I was nose bleeding and I was sad. And I kept all these things from my mom because I always wanted to protect her feelings. And now here I am thinking about the direction I'd like my life to take. And I am joining the dots of everything that has led me to this path. And it is not easy. I have to do a part 2 of this. It's not easy because very many women have been reaching out to me this week feeling as if they've fallen behind. And I've been asking the question, by whose standard? Is it because you're comparing your life now to the life you were told you're supposed to have, either by yourself or a parent or someone on social media? By whose standard have you fallen behind? Because you see, you've never lived this life before, so what makes you think you've fallen behind? I'll leave it on that for now. What is it about your life, or who is it that made you believe? Where did you get that idea that you've fallen behind? Go back to the root. Go back to the beginning of where you got that idea of this is how my life should be at this age. I'll see you on the next